2 missiles, 1 warship, and a waterway that powers the entire world economy. Right now, today, a decision is being made that could drag America into another war. And nobody is telling you what's actually at stake. Picture a room, no cameras, no press, no Twitter, just generals, admirals, and one phone line to the White House. That room exists right now. Inside it, men in uniform are staring at a map of a 33-mile-wide stretch of water, the Strait of Hormuz, and they are deciding what comes next. Because this morning, something happened that was supposed to be impossible. Iran fired on American warships. Not a drill, not a simulation. A real, live military engagement between the United States Navy and the Iranian armed forces, in a waterway that moves roughly 20% of the world's entire seaborne oil and gas supply. 20%. Think about that. 1 in 5 barrels of oil that powers your car, heats your home, and keeps your grocery store stocked passes through that narrow strip of water. And right now, it is a war zone. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what happened, who made what decision, what options are sitting on the table right now, and what each of those choices means for you, your wallet, and the world. This is not a drill. This is the story unfolding in real time. Before we get to today's missiles, you need to understand how we got here, because this didn't start this morning. This has been building for over 2 months. Back on April 8th, a fragile ceasefire was announced between the United States and Iran following a joint U.S.-Israeli military assault on Iran. The guns went quiet. The world exhaled. But here's what the ceasefire did not do. It did not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran kept its blockade in place. Hundreds of commercial ships carrying food, medicine, fuel, and supplies got trapped inside the Persian Gulf. Thousands of crew members stranded, running out of food, running out of time. 2 months of this. Oil prices didn't just rise, they surged more than 50% since the blockade began. Economists started throwing around a number that makes every American's stomach drop. $5 a gallon at the pump. If this doesn't get resolved soon, that is the background. That is why Sunday night, President Trump went on Truth Social and announced something called Project Freedom. Trump's post said, and this matters, "We have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so that they can freely and ably get on with their business." Sounds reasonable. Sounds almost diplomatic. Except the way you execute that mission is by sending guided missile destroyers into a strait that Iran has declared off limits to American forces. 15,000 U.S. military personnel, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, warships, drones, all activated under Project Freedom, all moving toward a waterway that Iran's military had already said, in plain language, would be treated as a red line. And not softly said. Iran's Major General Ali Abdullahi released a statement that contained zero diplomatic language. He did not say, "We are concerned." He said, word for word, any foreign armed force, especially the aggressive military of America, should they intend to approach or enter the Strait of Hormuz, will be subjected to attack. That was the warning. America moved anyway. Now pause here for a second, because this is important, and a lot of channels are skipping this part. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button right now, because on Verified Bulletin, we don't just read you the headlines, we put you in the room where it's happening. Monday, May 4th, 2026. 2 U.S. Navy guided missile destroyers transited the Strait of Hormuz in support of Project Freedom. Iran's Navy detected them, issued warnings by radio. The destroyers kept moving. Iran fired warning shots. The destroyers kept moving. Then Iran escalated. Cruise missiles, combat drones, small boats launched from the Iranian side, heading directly toward U.S. naval vessels and the commercial ships operating nearby. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reported that 2 missiles struck a U.S. warship near Jask Island, also known as Yas Island, on the southern edge of the strait. U.S. Central Command responded within minutes. Their statement was direct. No U.S. Navy ships have been struck. So who is telling the truth? Here is what we actually know. A senior Iranian official told Reuters that Iran did fire and described it as a warning shot, but said it was unclear whether the warship had been damaged. Oil prices jumped 5% the moment the reports broke. That is not nothing. Markets don't panic over nothing. What happened next confirmed that real military contact occurred regardless of whether a ship was physically struck. American Apache helicopters and SH-60 Seahawk helicopters destroyed 6 Iranian small boats in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed this. U.S. forces blew up 6 Iranian vessels. This is no longer a ceasefire by any reasonable definition. And yet, and this is the part that tells you how dangerous the situation really is, neither side has officially declared the ceasefire dead. Right now, there are multiple decision rooms running simultaneously, and every one of them matters. In Washington, Admiral Brad Cooper, head of U.S. Central Command, is managing 15,000 troops in an active engagement zone. He stood in front of reporters today and refused to say whether the ceasefire is over. That silence was deliberate. When a CENTCOM commander won't answer a direct yes or no question about a ceasefire, that tells you everything. 2 U.S.-flagged commercial vessels did complete the transit today. Trump's team is calling that a win. The mission succeeded in its first step. But at what cost? And what comes tomorrow when more ships try to move? In Tehran, Iran's Army Commander-in-Chief, Major General Amir Hatami, posted on X, publicly, that American aircraft carriers attempting to approach the Strait of Hormuz would be met with force. He said, and read this slowly, cruise missiles and combat drones took to the skies. Every inch of these waters is within the range of our will. That is not a man backing down. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson had already framed the diplomatic situation this morning. His message was stark. America is not looking for negotiation. It is looking for justification for another round of war. Drop a comment below. Do you think America is heading toward another war in the Middle East? Because the people at the top are not agreeing on the answer right now. And then there is a third player that almost nobody is talking about today, the UAE. The United Arab Emirates announced that Iranian missiles and a drone attack struck inside Emirati territory, with a fire breaking out at an oil facility in Fujairah. 3 Indian nationals were injured. The UAE called it a dangerous escalation, an unacceptable transgression, and a direct threat to their security. Saudi Arabia has weighed in saying security of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz is a collective priority. So now you don't just have America and Iran in this. You have Gulf states getting hit. You have oil infrastructure burning. You have a region-wide situation developing in real time. Here is where Style 20 lives. This is the decision room. Right now, today, there are 3 realistic options being debated at the highest levels of the U.S. military and the White House. Option 1 is escalation. America does not blink. Destroyers continue transiting. More commercial ships follow. If Iran fires again, America fires back. Harder. The logic here is deterrence. If America backs down after Iran fires on its ships, every adversary on the planet draws a conclusion. The risk is obvious. 1 miscalculation, 1 ship actually sunk, 1 American sailor killed, and public pressure for a full military response becomes overwhelming. Option 2 is a tactical pause. America completes the first transit, the 2 ships that moved today, declares a symbolic victory, and then quietly slows the pace of future operations while back-channel diplomacy resumes. This is the face-saving option. Iran doesn't fully win. America doesn't fully escalate. The ceasefire technically survives. The problem is that hundreds of ships are still trapped. Thousands of crew members are still stranded, and at $5 a gallon, Americans will not wait forever for a diplomatic solution. Option 3 is a negotiated corridor agreement. This is what Iran has actually been proposing. Tehran says shipping can move through the strait, but only if it is coordinated with Iranian armed forces. Essentially, Iran wants a toll gate. Permission-based access to a waterway that international maritime law says is open to all. America accepting that framework would represent a geopolitical shift that goes far beyond this crisis. It would mean acknowledging Iranian control over one of the most important maritime chokepoints on Earth. That is not a small concession, and it is why this decision is so difficult. If this video is helping you understand what's really happening, and not just what the headlines say, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who deserve verified information. This is where it stops being an abstract foreign policy story. If America escalates and conflict resumes, energy analysts are already projecting crude oil at $150 a barrel or higher. That translates directly to gas prices that could shatter records. Supply chains already stressed from 2 months of blockade would face another rupture. Inflation, which Americans have been fighting to bring down, comes roaring back through the energy sector first and everything else second. Canada sends roughly 4 million barrels of oil per day to the U.S. but Canadian refineries also depend on Middle Eastern crude for certain grades of oil. A prolonged Hormuz closure pulls global supply tighter and sends energy prices up for North Americans, regardless of whether a drop of that oil ever touched the strait. If diplomacy wins and a corridor opens, markets stabilize. Gas prices start to come down. The 21 nations whose ships are currently stranded in the Gulf get their vessels and crews home. That is the best-case scenario. But given what happened today, 6 Iranian boats destroyed, missiles fired, an oil facility in the UAE on fire, the path to that outcome just got significantly harder to walk. And if nothing is decided, if the situation stays in this gray zone of neither war nor peace, that ambiguity itself is the problem. Shipping companies are watching. Insurance rates for vessels attempting the strait have already made most transits commercially unviable. The blockade effectively continues even if nobody fires another shot. Here is the thing that will stay with you after this video ends. Iran's foreign ministry said today that America seems uninterested in negotiation and appears to be looking for justification for a new war. America's CENTCOM said today that it is executing a defensive humanitarian mission to free stranded ships and their crews. Both of those statements can be simultaneously true. That is what makes this moment so dangerous. Two sides, both convinced they are right, both with military assets in a 33-mile-wide stretch of water, both with domestic political pressures demanding they not appear weak, and somewhere in that narrow space between two navies that are now actively exchanging fire, even if nobody wants to call it that, a decision is being made that will echo for years. The room exists. The men are in it. The options are on the table. What happens next? Nobody outside those walls knows tonight. That is the full picture as it stands right now on May 4th, 2026. 2 missiles, a warship, 6 Iranian boats destroyed, an oil facility in flames in the UAE, 2 commercial ships that made it through, and a ceasefire that the world wants to believe is still alive, even as both sides fire weapons at each other. Verified Bulletin will keep tracking every development as it comes in, because this story is not done, not even close. If you want to be the person in your circle who actually understands what's happening in the world, and not just what trending hashtags are saying, subscribe to Verified Bulletin right now. Hit the bell so you don't miss our next update, and drop your honest take in the comments. Do you think the Hormuz ceasefire is effectively over? We read every comment. We take this seriously, because the world deserves verified news, not noise.